So, how do you tell the difference between what's real and what's fake? Between a lasting truth and just a fleeting illusion. Today, we're going to dive deep into a single, incredibly powerful verse from the Qur'an that uses the natural world to give us a framework for that exact question. We're going to explore verse 17 of Surah Ar-Ra'd, looking at it through the detailed analysis of Ayatollah Javadi Amoli, to see how something as simple as rainwater and foam can teach us about the very nature of reality itself.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll break down the two core analogies the verse gives us, one from nature, with water, and another from industry, with metal. Then, we'll see what universal principle these two examples reveal about why truth endures and falsehood just fades away. After that, we'll watch this principle play out in the epic story of the prophet Moses confronting Pharaoh's magicians, and we'll wrap it all up by tackling the really big questions. Why do we get truth and falsehood mixed up so often, and is there a final test we can use to tell them apart for good?
Okay, so let's start with that first core analogy. The verse paints this incredibly vivid picture, something we've all seen before, but it uses it to explain something profound and invisible, how divine knowledge actually interacts with us, with humanity. This right here is our foundation. Every single piece of this image is just packed with meaning. And the analysis we're digging into breaks this whole scene down, piece by piece, and gives each element a really deep symbolic role. It all begins with the source of the water. First up, that water sent from the sky. Now, obviously, this isn't just about H2O. In this exegesis, it's a symbol for the ultimate source of truth, divine revelation, the Qur'an itself, the very essence of reality coming down into our world. And just like water, it's pure, it's essential, and it's meant to bring spiritual life and growth wherever it lands. Now, this next part of the verse is absolutely crucial, and valleys flow according to their capacity. That Arabic phrase, bika bariha, is the key to this whole interpretation. What it's telling us is that even though this divine rain of truth is one and the same for everyone, the way it's received is completely different for each of us. The valleys here, well, that's us. That's our hearts and our minds. And just like real valleys, right? Some are huge and deep and can hold an ocean of understanding. Others are smaller, they're shallower, and can only hold a little bit. The truth is there for everyone, but our ability to really grasp it depends on our own individual capacity. So as this powerful flood of truth rushes through the world, it kicks something up. It says the flood carries swelling foam. And this foam, or zabad, is just the perfect symbol for falsehood. I mean, think about it. What is foam? It's all air and show. It's loud, it rides high on the surface, it takes up a ton of space, and it can even hide the clear water underneath. But what substance does it have? None. It's got no weight. And that's batil. It's the doubts, the flashy but totally empty arguments, the distractions that always seem to pop up right alongside genuine knowledge. And just in case we missed the point, the verse immediately hits us with a second, parallel analogy. This time, we're not out in nature. We're in the world of human craftsmanship, metallurgy, but it's the exact same principle, just in a totally different setting. So here, the verse is describing smelting ore, heating it up at a fire to make something useful and beautiful, like jewelry or tools. And what happens when you do that? An impurity, a foam or dross rises to the surface. It's the worthless junk that you have to skim off to get to the pure metal underneath. So what you have here is this incredibly powerful parallel. It doesn't matter if it's in nature or in a workshop, the process of bringing forth something valuable, whether it's life-giving water or pure, useful metal, also brings forth this worthless byproduct, foam and dross. The commentary points out that falsehood isn't always its own separate thing. A lot of the time, it just latches on to truth, riding its coattails and making a big scene before its uselessness is revealed. And this sets the stage perfectly for the verse's final, powerful conclusion. All right, now we're getting to the heart of it. The verse has given us these two really solid, concrete examples, and now it's going to pull a universal law from them, a law that basically governs the nature of truth and illusion. And here it is, the punchline. That foam, it vanishes. The Arabic word jufa'an means it's just cast off like scum. But what about the stuff that actually helps people, the pure water and the refined metal? It remains on the earth. Yamkuthu fil ard. Its benefit is what gives it permanence. And this isn't just about physics. It's a rule about reality itself. This brings us to these two huge concepts, haq and batil. And it's so important to get what they mean. Haq isn't just a correct fact. It's what is real, what is substantial, stable, purposeful. It's reality. And on the flip side, batil isn't just a mistake. It's what is void, empty, an illusion with no foundation. You could say it's basically a bubble just waiting to pop. This table really lays out the difference so clearly, especially with the specific Quranic words. Truth, haqq, is defined by its benefit, yanfo nas, and its permanence, yamkuthu fil ard. Falsehood, batil, is defined as useless, jufan, and temporary, yadhebu, it just goes away. And this is where you see that great paradox, right? Falsehood is often loud and flashy and really visible, just like that foam on the water. But truth, like the water or the metal hidden beneath, is often quieter, maybe less obvious, but it has all the real weight, all the real value, and all the substance. So we've got this powerful principle. But this isn't just some abstract philosophy. The exegesis shows us how this whole dynamic plays out in actual human history. And really, there's no better case study than the famous showdown between the prophet Moses and the magicians of Pharaoh. I mean, this moment from the Qur'an is the perfect example of truth meeting falsehood head-on. This isn't a debate, it's not an argument, it's a collision. One reality directly confronts another. And the result? Annihilation. The staff of Moses doesn't just beat the magic, it swallows it whole. It completely erases the illusion that they had worked so hard to build. So the analysis really zooms in on the exact wording the Quran uses here. To describe the magic, it says, yukhayyalu ilayh, which means it was made to seem to him. This one phrase is everything. Their ropes and staffs never actually became snakes. It was a powerful illusion, a kind of mass hypnosis, a trick of the eye. It was pure batil, an impressive, maybe even terrifying appearance, but with absolutely zero underlying reality. The contrast here is just, it's night and day. Moses' miracle came from a divine source, and it resulted in a real transformation of reality. The staff actually became a serpent, that's haqq. The magician's sorcery, that came from human skill and deception, and it only resulted in a visual illusion, that's batil. So what happens when they meet? Haqq doesn't just compete with batil, it consumes it. The real serpent swallows the imaginary ones, proving that core principle. When ultimate truth comes up against an illusion, the illusion just ceases to exist. So this leads us to this really pivotal and deeply psychological question that the exegesis explores in a lot of detail. Okay, if the difference between a real serpent and an illusion is so absolute, why didn't everyone see it that way? How could Pharaoh and his entire court look at these two things and just call them both sorcery? Well, the answer, according to the commentary, takes us right back to the beginning, back to the capacity of the valley. See, the ability to tell haqq from batil isn't automatic. It actually requires a certain kind of vision, a depth of perception that lets you see past the flashy surface and into the real substance of things. So the analysis lays out these two ways of seeing the world. The disbeliever, the person with a shallow valley, they only see the outer form. To them, a moving snake is a moving snake. They're impressed by the spectacle, by what the Qur'an calls the great magic of the illusion. But the person of insight, who the Qur'an calls ulul albab, literally people of the kernel or deep intellect, they look past all that. They ask, what's the source here? What's its true nature? Is this a real change or is it just a trick? And what's fascinating is that the magicians themselves, the experts in illusion, they immediately saw the difference. They recognized the reality in Moses' miracle and fell to the ground in belief. Meanwhile, Pharaoh, who was blinded by his own arrogance, just saw a better magician. Finally, the commentary gives us a really practical test to tell truth from falsehood, one that looks at their internal nature. And to explain this, the analysis introduces two final, really powerful concepts that describe the inner state of haqq and batil. So the state of falsehood is called talatim. It means agitation, turbulence, like waves clashing against each other. Because falsehood isn't based on reality, it's always unstable. A system of lies will always contradict itself somewhere. It's just like foam, a chaotic mix of bubbles that are constantly popping. Truth, on the other hand, is defined by istiqrar, stability, firmness, certainty. Because it's a single, unified reality, it's consistent. It's at peace with itself. This last analogy just ties it all together beautifully. Imagine you have a pot of murky water, a mix of truth and falsehood. You put it on a fire. Now that fire represents a test. It could be rational scrutiny, examination, or just life's trials. The heat causes agitation, talatim, and this turmoil is what forces a separation. The impurities, the batil, because they're unstable, they rise to the top as scum, and you can just skim them away. And the pure water, the haqq, Because it's stable and substantial, it settles at the bottom in a state of calm clarity of istiqrar. So, the ultimate test for any idea? Put it to the fire. Falsehood will reveal its own contradictions and fall apart. Truth will only become clearer and more certain. And just like that, we land right back where we started, with the verse's powerful, enduring principle. This whole deep dive, from water and metal to miracles and magic to agitation and stability, it all leads back to this one profound law of reality. Permanence comes from real benefit. Things that are just for show, things that are superficial and useless, they're destined to vanish like foam on a river. But that which has real substance, that which truly benefits humanity, that is haq. And it's the haq that will always, in the end, remain.